All right, looks like we're live on YouTube and Facebook right now. Welcome to the Common Grounds Podcast. I'm your host, Chris from Roasters Marketplace and the Common Grounds Podcast. Tonight, we've got a really special guest. They make some really amazing, and there is my notifications telling me to mute my phone every night. You know, we would learn, you would think we would learn to turn that off before we start the show, but we didn't. We're talking to Marek from Kruve coffee accessories. They make the Sifter. They make the Brewer, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight a little bit. They make some really cool cups, little glass cups that are fancy and scientifically designed to make you taste your coffee better. It's going to be a really cool show. Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to the podcast later on down the road, be sure to check us out on Apple, iTunes, and give us a 4 or 5 star rating. 4 stars works. Just let us know how you're liking the show. If this is your first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Let us know, or lets you know, that we go live. So we're going to go ahead and start off the show with a little bit of Dom Coors. All right. Good evening, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I am very well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. I talked to you a little bit in the green room earlier before we started, but go ahead and introduce yourself. I did a horrible job. I had like 6 things going off on my phone at one time. So go ahead and tell my audience who you are, the company that you're with, and what exactly y'all do.
Yeah. So my name is Marek. I'm one of the co-founders of Kruve. Right now, we're not that big of a team, so we kind of wear many hats. We do everything from sales and finance and product development and all that. Kruve itself, we started about 3 to 4 years ago. We're a specialty coffee product company. We try to make innovative, high quality, but beautiful products that just enrich the whole coffee drinking experience. We started with a Sifter, which is one of our first flagship products, which is a coffee grind refining system, measuring tool, calibration tool. And we moved on to some scientifically designed glasses that we'll talk about. We have glasses from brewed coffee and espresso, as well as one of our latest products now. It's called the Brewer. We'll talk about that a little bit. But basically, we are huge coffee geeks that started learning about coffee and wanted to know more. And then we saw these roadblocks, and we tried to solve some problems and made products for people like us that wanted to use. And yeah, it's grown into a business. So we're definitely very thankful for that.
So tell the audience a little bit about how you got into specialty coffee and where you're located at.
Yeah, so we're based out of Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. We got into specialty coffee as my brother and I. This is maybe close to 10 years ago. We wanted to start making better coffee at home, and it started with a little Bialetti stovetop, and it started progressing on, and we started reading books. And the more we read, the more you're like, wow, this rabbit hole goes really deep. I know nothing about coffee. And the more you learn, the more you know, the more you understand of how little you know. So everybody always said, oh, the grinder is more important. The grind is more important, fresh beans. And my brother, being an engineer, he actually just took the grinds, cut me out of like an old Bodum little grinder, and put it through a kitchen sieve, and was blown away at the variance. And for him, like seeing something that's like 100 microns and almost 2,000, that's a massive scale. And if everybody's trying to say the grind's important because it extracts, sour, sweet, bitter, and you want to get that sweet spot, it's impossible with an inconsistent grind. So we started realizing, okay, the grinder is important, but how can we solve this problem with maybe a little bit of a cheaper grinder or something that a grinder can't actually do? And when my brother brewed the coffee using the sieve, it was unbelievable, the difference. And we started Googling around, and we saw that Matt Perger actually used the sieve in competition and won the World Brewers Cup. So like, oh, this is actually a thing. And we wanted to buy a product that did this, and it didn't exist. So I started with these big, for gold mining. So you'd pass sand and stuff through it. That was kind of like the first makeshift sifter. And so we started from there on Kickstarter to see, does this idea have validity? Can we actually make this? Do people care? And yeah, the response was amazing. We raised money, we put the product into production, and now we have distribution in over 30 plus countries. So it kind of gave us that jump off point to start making other cool products into coffee and learning more and meeting cool people at trade shows and getting to know the whole industry. So it's been a fun journey.
I'm surprised, and we were talking about this earlier, about how I've been eyeing the Sifter and being like, man, I want to get one. I really want to get one, and they've been out of stock, and it's due to the whole supply chain problems.
Mhm.
And then every time I read a review, they're like, it's an awesome tool, but it's going to make you buy a new grinder. And I was like, oh, that's the last thing I need to do is buy something that makes me want to go out and spend $800 on a grinder. I'm surprised that no grinder companies have endorsed y'all and be like, hey, buy this if you're using somebody else's grinder, so you want to get one of the new ones.
Yeah, it definitely highlights the variants coming out of entry level grinders, and then we've actually have a lot of resellers of EK43s and Malkinut Peaks using this to actually do a demonstration showing you the difference. Like, well, why should I spend $400 or $2,000 on a grinder? Like, well, I can actually show you. I'll prove to you using they say the same amount of coffee passing through the same amount of sieves, and you see that huge grind distribution. And you see those grind distribution graphs. You have those bell curves where obviously the higher the peak, the more narrow, the more concentrated the grind size is in that grind size. But what the kind of sifter does, it lets you actually cut off those tails. So you could be really narrow and use, say, like a 400 and 600 micron sieve and get a really narrow band, or you could use a 1200 on the high end and a 300 on the low end, just get rid of like those crazy extremes. Or brew in sequence. There's a lot of different things you could talk about that we haven't even actually had time to go into, like sequential brewing. So one of the most common questions we get is like, well, if I have 20 grams of coffee, but I have 4 on top and 5 at the bottom, I'm wasting a lot of coffee. But it's actually not the case, because if you could brew coffee in a sequence, starting, say, in an AeroPress, you throw in that top tray and you let that bloom or brew for about a minute. Then you pour in the middle tray and you add a little bit more water, or you just stir it in. So now you're brewing that for, say, your normal 3 minutes, and right before you plunge, you throw in those fines and press. Now you've brewed anything, say, 1200 microns and above for 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, your actual target range for 3 minutes, and then those fines for like 30 seconds. So you're actually extracting coffee at different rates based on particle size, which is, I don't think anybody's really been talking about that, but it's something it's something pretty cool that we keep planning to make videos on, but just there's never enough time in the day.
Never enough time. But that sounds that sounds really cool, just so you can take and just variances in water temperature and
Yep.
time makes such a difference. But I can only imagine what I would get out of my cheap electric grinder and be like, what, if my coffee's amazing right now, what am I missing? What if I did that and sifted everything perfectly for that AeroPress? And
we don't claim to be coffee experts or roasters. There's people way more educated than us. We're just trying to make tools that let you unlock certain things. So when you have like Benjamin Putt, he was one of the Canadian barista champion, and he's using a sifter and sifting everything up above 500 microns for espresso, because he knows that if he does that, he's actually unlocking the apricot flavors more that he's looking for in the coffee. So sometimes you have these hints, or like a little bit of strawberry or a little bit of plum. But if you know what you're doing and which levers to pull, like you said, brew time, temperature, grind size, grind consistency, you could actually be unlocking or heightening certain notes. And like glassware also, it's just like wine, it plays a crucial role in heightening acidity, softening acidity, capturing funneling aromas. So there's a lot of kind of science, but also proven industry techniques that we're using in our products, but they're from other industries, like the whiskeys and cognacs, using we're going down a rabbit hole here. Sorry, I could.
You're good. That's what we're here for. This is a giant rabbit hole show.
Awesome.
On coffee. So
like one of the things. So I'm actually cheers is bourbon, but in our espresso glass, if I give you a shot of bourbon in a little shot glass, you're almost kind of just naturally you just want to shoot it back.
Yeah.
But if you put it in a Glencairn or in a tumbler with ice, rarely do you just slam it back. You swirl it, you smell it, take a sip of it,
You enjoy it.
you enjoy it. And with espresso, it's such a small portion and it's such a small cup that it's very hard to actually enjoy it for more than those 2 or 3 sips. So by changing the vessel that you drink out of, for example, this is like our Propel glass, where it's double walled at the bottom, single wall at the top. So it has a lot of those features of, say, a Glencairn. It actually has fins inside here that with espresso, it stratifies very quickly as it extracts. They have the densest particles going to the bottom, and then you have the crema, the heart, the body, and you're supposed to stir it all together with a spoon. Not many people stir, or they try to swirl little tiny cups. So we designed a vessel that lets you hold the espresso kind of in the palm of your hand as you would a whiskey glass. It's designed to be swirled. Those fins actually help de-stratify everything. The lip captures aroma, but it also spreads the espresso on your tongue. So now you can actually enjoy espresso for more than those 3 or 4 sips. And just that psychological aspect for me was the biggest reason why I love this glass so much, is that it changes our things like elevating the coffee drinking experience. And if I give you a 12-ounce mug of coffee, you can drink it, just like you would wine out of a paper cup. You drink it out of a glass, kind of elevate that experience to give it more, kind of heighten that experience. So drinking coffee by brewing, say, 10 ounces into a carafe, then pouring 5, swirling, enjoying, it slows you down. Then you finish one glass and you pour yourself another glass. And for us, that actual ritual, like for me, my morning starts with coffee, and the grinding, the whole weighing out. Like I'm very meticulous, and when people come over, they're like, "You do that every time."
Every time.
But like I have a Flare espresso. I love it. Amazing espresso from that. I have basically every brew method almost that there is, and I love it. It's the experimentation, trying different roasts from all around the world. Like for me, the funkier, the fruitier, the better. Like an Ethiopian natural process, amazing. And having glassware that kind of accentuates that, slows you down. So you're not drinking for the caffeine, but you're actually trying to smell like just you would with a bourbon. It's like, oh, I'm getting a little bit of butterscotch, a little bit of rye. It's very similar, and we try to merge those two worlds and slow people down from drinking coffee in a mug just for the caffeine, and try to get them to see, oh, I am getting some cherry notes. And a lot of people already do that, but there wasn't really a vessel designed to accentuate that, but it also manipulate that through like the difference between a white wine glass and a red wine glass. One has more surface area for oxidization. As red wine oxidizes, those tannins break down, so it's a little bit less tart, less dry, less bitter. We did the exact same thing with coffee. So the Excite glass has double the surface area as the Inspire. So this one oxidizes a lot quicker. So the exact same coffee in 2 different glasses tastes totally different. This is usually a lot more acidic, and acidity isn't the bad word. Like in a good way, this heightens acidity. This one actually mellows down acidity, dryness, and tannins, and makes coffee taste sweeter because those tannins were able to be broken down. And it's not that you're tasting sugar. It's kind of like if you get out of the ocean and you drink fresh water. You're like, oh wow, that's sweet. And it's not that water is sweet. It's the absence of salt makes it taste sweet. So the absence of those tannins as they're broken down makes the coffee appear sweeter. And so there's a lot of these kind of fundamental things that Rydell has been doing this for close to 100 years. But just applying that to coffee is something you have to try for yourself.
That's really cool. I had to mute myself there. My wife is running the vacuum cleaner of all times. But I'm the exact same way. And I was going, when you were going on your story there, I was going to say, I don't even like to have, like, if we have barbecue, if we have friends over and everybody's like, well, just get the paper plates out. And that way we don't have to clean up. No, I want my food on a plate. I want to be able to enjoy the meal. I want my coffee in a mug. I want to be able to enjoy my coffee. I want to be able to enjoy my scotch. I want to be able to, get my nice beer glass and have a nice IPA if I wanted to.
No,
And that goes along.
yeah.
Coffee's been so looked at by the majority of people as something that is convenience based,
Hmm.
and might not be enjoyed. I love to sit on the front porch and have a really good cup of coffee in the morning. We've actually got a question, and I think you've kind of covered it a little bit, but Donnie, he's one of our roasters on Roasters Marketplace. I'm going to put his
Okay.
question there. He says, what are your thoughts on the aeration of brewed coffee?
It depends on the outcome you want to achieve. So it does impact flavor and taste. And I said, we're not coffee experts, so I can't tell you the exact science behind it, or there's a lot more educated people in the SCA or a lot of roasters in general. But applying those principles and working with top baristas all around the world, there's a reason why if you watch like the Brewers Cup or Barista Championships, they'll serve espresso in a whiskey glass or in a big chalice, or from brewed coffee all the way to espresso. Just they're already going outside their own industry, looking at glassware to enhance flavors. Yet within the industry, nobody's really kind of been pushing that forward. So as far as aeration goes, it definitely does impact the flavor of coffee. One, it cools it. Two, it oxidizes quicker, so it actually breaks down tannins. And it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, depends on the coffee and the outcome that you want. So I prefer different coffees out of different glasses. I like my coffee to be bright, acidic, fruity. So I naturally kind of gravitate to the Inspire glass because it usually gives me that those notes if they're there, or they kind of heightened from that coffee.
Is it something that, and I'm going to use, is it something that you can take pretty much anybody and say, okay, try this coffee out of a mug, and then try this same coffee, same exact brew method, try it out of the Inspire glass, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that typically everybody can pick up on?
Yes, and it's not a you don't have to be a coffee nerd or a taster to actually get this. We did this exact test a few years ago when we were doing the prototypes for my mom, and she drinks coffee with a lot of sugar and a lot of milk. So for her drinking, a light roasted coffee, she wasn't used to that. But we poured her, and in front of her, the same coffee, the same craft, in two glasses. She tried one. She's like, okay, she doesn't like it. She tried this one. She's like, okay, and she's like, tried it again. She's like, so which one's this? I'm like, oh, it's this coffee. And which one's this? It's the same coffee. She's like, no, but in this glass, which one is it? I'm like, you just saw me pour it. It's the exact same coffee. She's like, no way. And she's like, see, I told you we're not wasting our time here. So like, non-coffee people can definitely taste the difference. So coffee people are, you're kind of trained, or you're looking for certain notes, or even just you're accustomed to certain tastes. So it definitely is something that everybody will notice. But a lot of it actually comes down to psychology. So there are physical changes that happen, but then there's also psychological changes. If I give you the same coffee in a red cup or in a blue cup, if there's this kind of music or that kind of music playing, if you're in a coffee shop or if you're not at home, if you're cold, if you're hot, like a lot of things come to play. The food you ate before has also an impact on what you're tasting after. So there's a lot of these things that come to play. Where if you go to a Michelin star restaurant, you're gonna get really good food, but the presentation, the price, a lot of times, oh well, this coffee is $1,000 a pound, so it must be really good. It might be good, but it might not be my preference, right? So coffee is very subjective. People like it, the old school kind of Italian way. I grew up in an Italian town where 99% of my friends were Italian, and they drank their espresso very bitter and chocolatey, and that was kind of their way. When they come over and I make them like a specialty coffee espresso, like this is not espresso. This is like weird for them. It's totally out of left field. So yeah, it's definitely something anybody can taste, can try, and you could try this at home. So if you have a wine glass and a cup, obviously cool the coffee down. We've broken many a wine glass by pouring hot coffee in there and it just shatters. It's not meant for that kind of the thermal shock. But if you haven't even an espresso, pour it into like a little cup. And if you have a Glencairn or a different kind of like a champagne flute to capture those aromas, you'd be surprised at actually how big of a difference it makes, or even espresso stirred versus unstirred. So
Oh, I mean, I've definitely, done the whiskey tastings where you try the whiskey out of 3 different glasses, and
mhm,
there's always, it's like, okay, on this one glass you're going to pick up a way more oak, way more cinnamon, or more vanilla tones
mhm,
on there. It's such a cool thing that we can experience. I know I was talking to one of our roasters a couple weeks ago, and he took part in the SCA Summit virtual summit back this summer,
mhm,
and they had a tasting. I don't know, you might have been involved in that, but they had a tasting experience that they did, and or a sensation experience, I think was what it was called. And they had a box of coffees that they were going through tasting, but they also had a playlist of music that they
mhm.
were supposed to listen to. They had different materials that they would touch during the tasting process. And one of the cool things he said was during that process, they were supposed to rub sandpaper
Wow,
during drinking one coffee. He said he couldn't even swallow the coffee because
that's
of the
amazing.
experience
Yep.
that sensation was giving him as he drank the
Mhm.
coffee. Donnie's back with another comment, and I'll probably link you up with Donnie here when we get it. He says, "How can a company become a vendor or a rep?" And so
I
I'll
Yeah. Email us sales@kruveinc.com, um, or go on our website. There's actually even a tab like become a reseller. So right now, inventory is kind of hard to come by, but we have all of our products. We just manufactured everything that we could for the fourth quarter, and we're getting that mid-October. So we'll have inventory to ship out to the whole world. Yeah, second, third week of October.
so let's we'll talk about the end of the supply chain and the supply chain problems that you all dealt with over COVID. But let's talk about the design process.
Sure.
What do y'all? So tell us about the newest and latest greatest is the Brewer, right? That's what's
Yes.
coming out. So tell us the problem that y'all are solving with the Brewer, and tell us how y'all came up with that design.
So one of the things that we come across is that people really they like the sifter. It fills or it fills a niche and it solves a problem, but it's also around $100 plus depending on how many sieves you have. So it's not accessible to everyone. And a problem we kept hearing from whether it's grinding manufacturers or roasters, or you go to a cafe, you love their coffee, you want to buy a bag. It's like, how do I make this at home? It's like, oh, well, we did 22 grams at 92 degrees Celsius for 3 minutes and like a sea salt grind. So you had like grams, seconds, degrees, and then sea salt, or use a medium grind. What's medium? So we tried to put a number to what is fine, medium, coarse. So you could do that with a sifter, but again, it's not really accessible. So what we tried to do is make a ruler where you could actually measure from 200 microns all the way to 1600, but we defined what fine, medium, and coarse are. So it'd be a lot easier for roasters to actually say, here, well, you could buy this brewer. It's only, just like a little over $10. You could actually go home and you know that this coffee tasted the best using, I'm not even gonna get into the type of water because that's usually the biggest the biggest differentiator. But now you could actually say use either a medium grind or use an 800 to 1200 micron grind. So now you could have this ruler and you actually compare the grinds coming out of your grind. There's like, oh, well, I was at French press setting. Meanwhile, realistically, on most low end grinders, you have to go a lot finer than they say. And the reason why these grinder manufacturers are telling people to grind so coarse, they're trying to mitigate those fines because those over extract and it makes coffee taste. I don't know. When I say stronger is not the right word, but kind of like drier, a little bit more bitter. And people associate bitterness with strong coffee, but that's not the case. You could have an amazingly sweet cup of coffee that's roasted well, extracted properly, and it's not bitter. So we've been toying with the idea of making something like this for so long. And when I came out, let's finally do it. So we did on one side, you have the,
Let me pull you back up.
yeah. So on one side here, you have the fine, medium, coarse. On the other side, you have common conversions from like Fahrenheit, Celsius, grams, pounds, centimeter ruler, and holes for green coffee beans from 11 to 20/64 of an inch. So it's not meant to kind of replace laboratories grading screens, but as something you can just put in your pocket, or if you're a green bean buyer, or if you're anywhere you want to just check the rough size of certain beans, at least you have kind of a scale that you could take with you. So this was kind of the first prototype, and we didn't like the whole pattern on there, so we redesigned everything. But we're very meticulous with all the little details. But I think in the end, obviously, it makes a better product. Going back to like those green beans, we actually make sieves that go from 11/64 all the way to 20/64 of an inch. Then again, the SCA sells, large screens, or you could buy them in different especially coffee places, where you can have these large sieves for grading green coffee if you're a Q grader or a roaster or you're buying green coffee. But they're $75 per sieve, and they're bulky. So if you're traveling to Kenya to buy coffee, it's not really that easy. But having a package like this, where you could have all 10 sieves that are interchangeable in the trays, and you could quickly put a 100-gram sample in the top, shake it down, and you say, oh, that's actually an size 18, because only 5% fell through. So people have asked us to make this from the very beginning, but we didn't know how important bean grading sieves were, because roasting was still just a mystery to us. Now we've come a long way. We've learned a lot more. And like, oh wow, this is actually a very, very useful tool. So we have now I think 15 different grind sieves and then 10 different bean grading sieves. So a lot of the design that we do stems from solving a problem, and we want to make it look cool and pretty and functional, something that you could actually take and use. We try to make our products as affordable as possible. Unfortunately, we have very high standards in taste in the design and the materials that we use, which just naturally makes things more expensive. All of our glassware it's hand blown, it's handmade, it has like real gold logo. You can't really tell, but it's like
let me pull you back up here.
So okay. Not that this makes a big price difference, but we have like real gold logos on there. For us, it's important that if you're using these things every single day, and I started doing that in my life about say 10 years ago, where I just started improving the little touch points in my life. So certain things I use once a year for whatever hobby it is. It doesn't have to be the greatest, but if I use a wallet every single day, I want it to be a cool wallet, something I take out and Top Gear, it gives you the fizz. I want stuff to kind of be really enjoyable to use. So if you're drinking an espresso or multiple espressos a day, having a cool glass that it actually functions to make it taste better, but it makes it more enjoyable. Everything that we try to do is to make everything look cool, make it functional, enjoyable to use. This as a circle would have been much cheaper to make, but we like the design. When you actually shake it, the curve shakes with the arc, so it's kind of like taking a circle and taking a piece of the pie out. So the natural wrist motion actually makes it easier to use. The spout is easier to pour coffee grinds out of. So every little detail has been it's been debated to death within the company. I say in the end the product is better, but we're also a lot slower to market with a lot of our ideas because we take so long deliberating on every little detail, make sure that the quality control's there.
But those details are what makes people that are in the market for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't until you mentioned it. I didn't even think about the shape of it naturally making it easy to pour your coffee out of
Mm-hmm.
that into your whatever you're brewing, because it makes a natural spout with the triangle. Yep. And it's just little things you don't think of when you're talking about a sifter. You're like,
mm-hmm.
how are we going to pour it out in the end? That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's like we just redesigned our sieve holder. It used to be a wooden, like at first we wanted something that's fairly inexpensive. And you know how like as a kid you had these little dinosaur wooden toys that we'd put together this little dinosaur and it cost like $1. And we're like, oh, that's what we want. We want just something that you could put the sieves in. And we want like, oh, well, it has to be bamboo because it's nice, and it has to look like this. And it ended up costing us so much money that but it didn't necessarily not that it didn't warrant it, but manufacturing cost was actually really high. So like, you know what, let's take that money and actually make something a lot better in our opinion. So this is actually a really thick aluminum that's stamped out. It's laser engraved on there, so it has a little bit more heft to it. We're a little bit more than the wood, but it's something that's a lot more durable. You don't have to assemble it. It holds 15 sieves, but also like the way we designed it is that they actually lock in place. So when you actually turn it upside down, they still stay in place. But as soon as you lift it forward, it kind of unlocks, and you could easily take them in and out like a Rolodex. You could actually look through the different numbers and pick the ones you need. It has like a slight little slant to make it lean back. And first samples we got, their edges were a little bit rough, so now we had them tumbled before they're anodized, so they're a little bit smoother and it kind of feels a little bit more premium. But these little things that kind of, when are you guys shipping? When are you guys shipping?
Yeah.
Well, we could have shipped long ago, but like you'll see the new box. This is our old Sifter box, and we're really happy with it. We think it came out pretty nice. Like the whole unboxing experience when you lift the front, the product is kind of displayed on there.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that, obviously we're not comparing ourselves to Apple, but a lot of these great companies that sell maybe a little bit more premium product, or even if it's a normal home good product, but sometimes the packaging, the presentation makes it stand out, and it's like, oh yeah, this is worth $100.
Yeah.
Packaging isn't costing us more. It's a little bit more time and design to make it look fancier, make it look prettier, but everything about it has also a function. So when it's recessed down, that actually creates the holding point. So during shipping, it doesn't get banged around. Now we've redesigned the whole box just to make it easier for manufacturing. So it's going to be like a Sifter base, and then you have like stands separately, this separately, all in an individual box, in an over box. But we made it really nice. But on the back end, it saves us a lot of problems. Because before we had like 5 different models in 3 different colors, and you have to have this huge inventory, and you're freezing a lot of money in one SKU, and all of a sudden this one starts selling. To do that, you have to basically reorder everything. So it was becoming a really big kind of cash flow problem for us. So we've redesigned things, jigged it around. So now it's going to be a little bit simpler for us. We'll have a Sifter base in silver and black, and then we have multiple models, but it's just a combination of a stand separately packaged together, sieves, whether it's bean sieves or grind sieves, or the Sifter Max, which has all of our sieves, and it just comes in a nice overbox. So it'll make it feel better, but on the back end, we're actually going to be able to keep products in stock more readily. It's kind of one of our problems before was trying to keep inventory in stock. We're still a small company, and to freeze that kind of money in one product set, it was tough for us. But I think we're kind of getting past that hurdle. We have really great manufacturing partners in China. We obviously, COVID also made it harder because now we can't travel there and work with them in person. We used to travel there. My brother would lived in Shanghai for I think 3 years, one of our prior businesses. So we have a lot of really great contacts and manufacturing partners there set up. So we kind of leveraged all that. But I don't think I'd want to do anything else other than make stuff I want to use, and from an idea to actually a physical product, and then to have people actually like it, then that's just a bonus. Like that's amazing.
It's a fun space to be in when you enjoy what you're selling or you're producing or you're making. I've got the coffee gig, and I've got a few other enterprises, and every single one of them I enjoy doing, and it makes getting up in the morning and making that cup of coffee and looking forward to the day a lot better when you enjoy what you do and you can put your passion behind it, and people see that come out in your products, and they see the time and the care that you take in production like that, and you can build a really good loyal fan base that or customer base, I should say, that will buy everything that you come out with because it's good quality, and it does what it's supposed to do. I'm really excited to get my hands on a Sifter now and to dial in some brews. Do you think we'll go into the let's finish out the production aspect of the talk.
Yep.
So you said y'all ramped all the production up for fourth quarter, and you're looking at shipments coming in a few weeks.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll start shipping everything to, like, we have a lot of back orders that are people waiting and emailing when's it shipping. So we'll get all out soon, and then we'll have a container coming into North America for domestic distribution. We have a lot of resellers that are also anxiously waiting, but hopefully for the whole Christmas season, we should have inventory available to whoever should want it or need it. So October 16th to 20 something, we should start shipping.
Awesome. And that'll be shipping from y'all directly to the customer, or for y'all to the resellers?
Both. It depends who it is. Like Asia is a really big market for us. countries like Thailand, Taiwan. We have some great resellers, but a lot of people are buying there direct. We were surprised actually how big Asian countries are for the specialty coffee market. And a lot of times I've been traveling to China for so long, and they basically went from nothing to skyscrapers and the best subways and best cell phones and best everything because it was brand new. Whereas if you go to like Rome, their subways are old and dingy and this like everything's because it's been around for so long that it's hard to kind of change. So when they get something new, they went right to the best, the latest. And coffee wasn't in their culture for so long. So when they jumped into coffee, they're like, well, we're not going to go to Folgers and we're not even going to go to Starbucks. We're going to go one step above. And the Asian specialty coffee market is amazing. We have a lot of really, really great customers there. So it was fun traveling through China and seeing our products in Starbucks Reserve in Shanghai. We had the Sifter there. It was cool seeing that.
Oh, what about Australia? Y'all got a bunch of
Yeah,
distributors in there.
yeah. We have working with Bombora. They're one of the larger kind of distributors there, as far as a few other smaller resellers. But we're always looking for companies that like, we don't just take anybody on, and we want to make sure that they're in specialty coffee, that they know what they're talking about, because we know this is a niche product, and I don't want to take an order from somebody and they're like, oh well, this isn't selling. It's like, yeah, well, it's not your market, it's not your
Right.
clientele, right? Just because I make a sale to a reseller or a distributor, my job's not over. It's until the end customer buys it, likes it, and wants to keep it, that the whole kind of like circle closes. So we were very aware of the kind of space that we live in within that niche of specialty coffee. But with every product that we come out, we want to grow. Like one of my partners, Mark, would say like there's different ripples in coffee where you have like the people who are baristas and world barista champions, and then there's people on those outer edges that don't even know that that exists. They just drink uh, like no, I don't know what it's called, like the coffee that just dissolves.
The instant coffee. Yeah.
Instant coffee at home, and they say, "Oh, I love coffee. I drink the best instant coffee." I'm not knocking anybody. We know that there's
Oh
hundreds
yeah.
of millions of people in that area. Coffee is the second highest traded commodity in the world after oil. But specialty coffee, I think it's less than a percent or something of coffee produced in the world is the actual specialty grade. So we know that it is that a smaller market, but globally it's still big enough for companies like us to
Oh yeah.
make products and innovate and push it forward. And our end goal is, it's maybe ambitious, but kind of like how Rydell, they started with wine glasses. Before that, you drink wine, like even you go to a small town in Italy where a lot of my friends are from, you have wine out of just a little glass, and it's for dinner, and it's a normal beverage. Whereas here, it's glorified, not unjustly, but it's there's more experience, there's more thought put into even like the label of the bottles and how it's sold and the price. But then you have a white wine glass and a red wine glass, and a lot of people that kind of go, why two glasses? Like, well, do you have a white wine glass at home? Like, yeah. Do you have a red wine? Of course. Why? Oh, you just need it. Like,
Yeah.
well, they don't know why they need it, but Rydell started this new trend of creating glasses for different wines because of certain aspects and characters of the wine to enhance certain flavors. So we, oh man, I'm going down some, I'm
That's what
zigzagging all over the place.
you're good. You're good, man. You're good.
So hopefully we get past those kind of initial ripples of really niche coffee and go outside, and the Sifter isn't as accessible to somebody drinking instant coffee or has a Keurig. But if you have a Keurig and you make an espresso in this glass, it will actually taste better. So it is a little bit more accessible. And having something like a brewer, where if you are starting the coffee or if you're a roaster trying to convey something to a customer, you could actually sell them this. Or we have companies that are buying these and giving them away to customers with a grinder, with whatever.
Yeah.
So it's an inexpensive tool to kind of help people get into that. And the third wave, where like the specialty coffee world is growing all the time, and new people once they experience specialty coffee, and it's hard not to get sucked into that world.
It's amazing that you can take something as simple as coffee and something that we've been drinking coffee for 20 years.
Mhm.
But I thought I was fancy or doing something different by getting it out of the storage bin at the grocery store,
Hmm.
like you pull, okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
weigh
yeah,
it
yeah.
out. This is really fancy. And then I was like, oh, I'll get one of these little blade grinders for home. And now I'm really fancy because I'm grinding my coffee. And then sometime I'd get coffee and it was horrible. I'm like, well, that coffee's nasty. I'm never going to have a Yurga chef.
Mhm.
That's just disgusting. And then I found out that I was doing it all wrong. I was doing
Mhm.
everything about it wrong. And now I love a light roasted Yurga chef. I
Mhm.
love, you know, a really nice Kenyan, something that's fruity and flavors that I didn't
Yeah.
even know were supposed to be there
Mhm.
because I was showed it. I was introduced to specialty coffee. And that's kind of what I'm doing on this show a little bit, is trying to introduce it to specialty coffee to different people, and definitely with the website and getting people to look at coffee in different ways. And you'll see somebody's journey if they've engaged with me on social media or something. They're like, okay, we'll try it. What do you recommend? I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, where are you at in your journey? Okay, you're at a breakfast blend. Let's try that breakfast blend, and then let's move into something that's going to be familiar to you, which is maybe just a classic medium roasted Colombian. Okay, that's a little bit, and then we work our way into
Mhm.
something double fermented
Yeah.
Ethiopian natural or something just crazy off the wall, and
Yeah. No,
it's a
it
cool
could be
journey.
shocking. Yeah, it could be shocking for somebody to try like that kind of natural Ethiopian for the first time. And I remember the first time I tried, I'm like, is this tea? What am I drinking? This is crazy. I didn't know coffee could actually taste like that. Because my only experience in coffee was from like Lavazza pre-ground espresso blend in a little Bialetti with like two sugars. That was coffee for me. And until I tried that, I'm like, okay, there's so much that I don't know. Like, and I started researching that, tried making it home, and again, you start hitting these roadblocks, and then it's like, oh, I need better water. I need an RO. Says, no, there's third wave water, and like there's so many different products, and people are like, third wave water came along and said they took that aspect. Coffee shops, a lot of the reason why a lot of their coffee tastes so good is the water they're using is properly filtered and the minerals are adjusted properly for that best extraction. Like I have a water softener at home, so that water is horrible. If I take it before the water softener, it's super hard and chlorinated. So it's for me buying like distilled water and putting the third wave water packets in there. I know that I'm getting really great water. And if you're taking the time, a lot of the coffees that I buy, luckily I have a lot of really great local roasters, so I buy in bulk 5 pound bags at a discount. Other than that, I'd be going broke. A lot of these coffees that are more expensive than like wines I drink.
Yeah.
So if you're buying like this high end coffee, it kind of warrants having something fancier. I don't know if that's the right word, but something to enjoy or give that coffee justice. And we have cafes in Korea that are actually serving coffee in our glasses. So you have that like a little wooden board. It has a little paper on there. It says like this is a, let's say, Ethiopian Yurga chef, and you have tasting notes. So if you go to like a micro roaster, like a microbrewery, you like have like a flight of beer, and you have
Oh
like a little
yeah.
card with different beers. So people have that with the two glasses. They're serving the same coffee in two glasses, giving them a different tasting experience. So there's a lot of things that you could actually do with
Oh,
glassware, and it could set you apart from the cafe next door that is maybe a little more traditional.
there's tons of stuff on there. There's tons of stuff that you can do. And to the roasters that are listening down the road, this is a fantastic way of introducing other people or introducing your customers to different experiences with
Hmm.
coffee. Because I can only imagine, and it's kind of weird because it's COVID, and you, some of the stuff would be a challenge, but just having somebody over and serving them the coffee in two different glasses and be like,
Hmm.
this is what you get, instead of just two different brew methods, you can do one brew method in two different glasses, and then you
Yeah.
can experience what you're getting from that by just the different vessel that it's being served in. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came on the show. I like geeking out over coffee, man.
Yeah. No, it's it's a pleasure. We've done these blind taste tests hundreds of times with our friends. We've even done them at a local cafe. Actually, it's somewhere on our YouTube page. We have like blind taste tests. People not knowing what they're drinking. We pour the exact same coffee, but of two different crafts. Nobody believed that it was the exact same coffee because of the differences. One of the bigger ones also, because it's wider, it actually cools quicker than the Inspire. The temperature of coffee plays a huge role also in the different
Huge.
notes that it unlocks. So there's so many of these kind of variables that kind of come into play. So we're definitely excited to see where this goes along, and a lot of the things like they are so it's borosilicate glass, so it's like shock proof. It's temperature you can put in the freezer, and you could put boiling water on there. They are relatively durable, like more durable than wine glasses. But we know that for like a hard cafe use over and over, the one they don't stack nicely, like they kind of slip off. So we were actually just we should be getting a sample in probably a week. We're releasing a whole porcelain line. We haven't said this anywhere yet, so you're kind of getting exclusive.
Hey.
So we're going to be doing a porcelain version of the Propel, but it's a little bit slightly different shape. Same kind of aspects where it's single wall on top, double wall porcelain at the bottom. You have the same kind of slants, so the bottom of the cup and the wall slants. As you swirl, it kind of lifts the espresso off the sides and mixes it. The shape is going to be, it's kind of like a little bit more similar to our Excite Glass, which, by the way, they're the same outside shape, the Excite and Inspire. It's just the inside's different. Not many people know that. But it's going to be stackable, porcelain, more durable, different colors, and about half the price. So we're definitely really excited about starting to transition our line. So we have like the more premium glass version, but then for like a hard cafe setting, you could just replace like an old little Italian cup with a nice stackable. We don't even have a name for it yet, but the espresso cup that it does look fancier. It does elevate the experience. It does funnel espresso to your nose. The opening, like a typical espresso cup, you can't even get your nose in there. Here, when you're drinking, your nose is submersed in that beverage. So in say bourbon, we have the ethanol that kind of evaporates, and we get a lot of those flavor notes through that. But with coffee, we have heat and steam, and that takes those aromas. So when you're swirling, you coat the inside of the glass in those cremas, those oils, and when you're drinking, your nose is submersed in that coffee. You actually get a much
Oh
larger
yeah.
and you get a huge flavor hit, because more than like 80% of flavor comes from aroma. So if you ever had like garlic and you plug your nose, you can't really taste the garlic, and it's a lot all from the whole olfactory senses, and wine spirit industry has been doing this for decades. But just trying to kind of introduce that to coffee has been kind of a little bit of an uphill battle. But we did launch the two glasses at the SEA Expo. I think it was 2018 in Boston. Or 2019. But so we launched the two kind of glasses there, and we submitted them for the best new product category. We had a whole bunch of judges come in, and we did the whole spiel. We told them the whole science behind it, and then we brewed coffee and poured it for them. And you would immediately, like, you would see like skepticism on their face, and then you would see that as they would go down the journey of explaining it, they're like, okay, it makes sense. But when they try it, all of them, they just smile, and they're like, you can't, as a coffee person trying this for the first time, it's impressive to see like, wow, a glass could actually make that big of an impact. Like it opens up the world to so many different possibilities. Like I said, to like colors of glasses, the temperature of the coffee that you serve, the mood, the music that you're playing. So as a roaster, as a cafe, there's so many different things that you could play with. And he's kind of like just saying like making coffee, there's a lot of levers you can pull. Serving that coffee, you can make it super fancy, or you can make it more accessible to people. So there's, yeah, the Sifter and the glass they both kind of fill that niche as it's a great educational tool, but also something that you could actually use at
And
home to
it just
make the experience better.
it sounds like I know what I'm getting. So, because I mean, that's what I do. I brew coffee. Every day is a different experience. Maybe it's a different coffee. Maybe it's a different brew method. Maybe it's the same coffee with a different brew method. But
Mm-hmm.
now I can add one more thing to the mix
Yep.
and just enjoy that, that coffee a little bit more. Donnie is killing me on the comments here. I'm going to bring up, he says, are you working with the same manufacturer as the Norland whiskey glass? Now, if you can't answer that, I understand, but if you can,
Uh, possibly. I,
okay,
I don't want to say anything for sure,
okay,
but we are well aware of Norlin and what they've done with whiskey, and it's um, I'm into whiskeys and bourbons and alcohols, and I started that journey like 2 years ago. And again, I hated like smoky, peaty. Now
yeah,
I love it. I'm like the weirder, like the funkier the whiskey, or I like it, and it kind of brings you down that journey. The the companies that make our products are all vetted. They're all top standard, large companies that make products for some of the top brands in the industry.
So
Just put it
his
like that.
next question is, sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. If you have had any bad feedback on the lip being an odd transition for coffee drinkers, is the lip of the glass, because a coffee cup is typically pretty thick, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a pretty.
So yeah, I 100% get that. Understand the question, and we've had a lot of feedback, but it's all been positive. Nobody like so even in our crafts, when the double wall meets, it's much thicker here. So even there are double wall glasses out on the market or double wall espresso cups, drinking from that fat lip, like you're kind of chewing on the glass. When you switch over to something that's single walled, it does make it feel, I want to say, better. But we've had feedback. People say that they do like it. They like the lip feel where you don't have to open your mouth so wide. It's a more concentrated stream, and it's why like some of the best wine glasses, they have a very nice crisp edge. But then there's also other glasses that actually have a purposely rolled edge, because that does transfer the wine differently. And wine's in a completely different rabbit hole that we don't have time to get into. But definitely lip shape and thickness is something we concentrated a lot on, and we wanted to go as thin as possible without jeopardizing usability and strength and durability of the glass. So it's the thinnest that we're comfortable going. And like I've been using these glasses for about 3 years personally. I haven't had many issues. We do have some customers that emails go, I dropped it and it broke. I mean, yeah. You drop a coffee mug, it'll break too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But they are durable. We have a very low defect rate, like under 1%, which is amazing for a product that's handmade.
How's shipping on it? Do you run into a lot of issues on the glassware, or is your packaging pretty sufficient at dealing with the postal service?
I don't think I have a glassware box here, but we designed it purposely to have a structure inside to make it ship safe. So every box is drop tested. There's specific drop tests where you drop it on the corner, then on each side, and on the flat side from a certain height, and it has to pass all those criterias. Obviously, for us, we went a little bit overboard because last thing we wanted is to ship something to Brazil from China, and then it gets there broken, and that was when we're reshipping it, paying the shipping twice, which isn't cheap.
Yeah,
so we made sure that they're very durable. And aside from like one country in Asia where I don't know what they do with their glasses, we have very little that break. But we had one guy buy an Evoke, and we shipped it 3 times, and it was always just in tiny pieces.
Oh.
So either usually the last mile. If his mailman just throws it at his door, I mean, there's not much you can do. Like, it is glass.
I ordered 18 porcelain cupping cups, and when the box arrived, it looked like somebody had taken that FedEx box and pile drived it, and it was all smashed in on one end. I was like, oh, come on. And then I opened it up, and sure enough, 5 out of 6 of the little cupping bowls out of one thing were totally destroyed. But the company's sent me. Actually, should be here tomorrow. I should have 5 more cupping bowls. Is that something y'all will ever look into doing? Is doing cupping bowls?
We've been asked that many times to do like a cupping bowl or like a tasting spoon, but we make products that we actually use, and I don't know much about cupping. I've done it a few times with different roasters, but we have people asking, or even like roasters or resellers, go make a spoon or do this. I'm like, I don't know enough to make a better version of it, and I don't want to make just another one of the exact same thing with our name on it, because if we're not adding value, like for us, it's not. Hopefully, down the road, we do want to get there. But then I'd probably take like an SCA or like a green coffee grading course and actually learn and see and analyze, okay, this is what the current products are out there. How can we make this better? Or does it need to even be better?
Right. It'd be kind of off brand for you not to be improving something with the design. There's not much you can do with an SCA spec cupping bowl that's between 3.5 inches and 4 inches in diameter, and holds between 7 ounces and 8 ounces. You don't have a lot of room to
Yeah, like I'm sure
for
we can make it
variations.
look cool or whatever, but
Yeah,
we have a lot of other product ideas down the road that we want to get out there that are completely new. And again, it's something that we shoot ourselves in the foot, that we release something that's completely new and spend 2 or 3 years just educating people of what it is, how it works, and why they need it. And the payoffs down the road, hopefully, will be one that maybe coffee grind size will be standardized, where we're not talking about sea salt or kosher salt or a medium grind. We could either use microns or have maybe at least, maybe if the SCA picks this up in the sense that, okay, this looks like a reasonable amount, that fine is between 200 and 400 microns and coarse is between 1400 and 1600. And you have people that grind, like 1600 is really big. If you're going past that, which many people do for French press or cold brew, you're actually just wasting coffee, because water has to be able to penetrate that particle, dissolve those compounds, and come back out. Once you go past a certain point, there's no water, it never gets actually brewed inside. So the finer you can usually grind coffee and extract it properly is usually your best bet. And having definitely a good burr grinder will, there's incremental improvements with the water you use, the grinder you use, the beans, obviously, if they're specialty grade, if they're roasted fresh, if they're roasted properly, those are like huge changes. And then you just build on top of that until you have something where it's, people are shocked when they come over and they try coffee that way.
It's such an amazing experience to be able to even just the variances in temperature, even
Mm-hmm.
the variances in brew methods is something that's really cool to be able to do, and being able to use something like the Brewer to dial that in to the point where, okay, hey, this Kalita Wave does fantastic if everything I brew is between 800 and 1200 microns, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And it might not be something that, somebody who is a casual coffee drinker even cares about. But when, as a coffee customer, I buy, I subscribe to every one of our subscriptions that is active on our website. And so just today I got the dark roast subscription in, and the light roast subscription. Here in a couple of days I'll have the Roaster's Choice subscription to come in, and that's $40 something worth of coffee that I've had come in that I want to turn out amazing. And
Yep.
I don't want to waste that money I'm investing on a really good specialty coffee by not brewing it correctly, or being able to brew it even better than I currently am, because it's good
Mm-hmm.
coffee. It's something that I'm definitely
Are
interested
there
in.
any guidelines that come with the coffees or
It,
recipes?
sometimes it's really depending on the roaster. I've got roasters. I have some roasters that say, this is grind it at a medium coarse and use this in a pour over with a 1:16 ratio. Some of them do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them don't. And I think one of the reasons why is because there's such a variance in that grind setting that, if you don't know what somebody's grinding on, it's really hard to tell them, a medium fine or a medium coarse, because it
Yeah.
might be totally different. Uh, I know I've had the trouble of telling customers, or people subscribing to the email list or something, that this is the way I brew a cold brew, and they're like, well, you're using way too much coffee for that. Well, that's what I'm going for. There's ways to get around that, but if you're grinding it finer so it gets more, you're probably going to get some of those bitter tannins, out of the coffee. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a challenge. But when you're investing, I mean, well, if somebody's buying Starbucks every day, if they're buying a
Yeah,
latte every day, they're spending way more on coffee than they would
definitely.
buying even a $20 bag of coffee from me.
Yeah, we've had different coffee subscriptions that came to the office, and a lot of times, thankfully, since there's such a wide variety of coffee, a lot of times the portions aren't huge. just to dial it in could take a while, or even know what brew method. So if the roaster can give you some guidance and say, well, it works great as a kind of a pour over AeroPress with this kind of temperature and this kind of grind setting, guidelines will also, like, they'll get you to the place. And also then the subjectivity, like you may like it a little bit stronger or weaker or higher dose or ratio. But like we have, like I use a Kaya scale because it has a timer and has a scale on there. I have a fellow EKG kettle because it has the thermometer that tells me the exact temperature. So I know the grams, the seconds, the degrees. And then for grind size, well, I have a sifter, but you could also use a brewer to at least gauge where you're at. Because I've had people that have the exact same, one of the lower end boat, the Encore grinder by I'm losing it. Baratza. So the Baratza Encore is one of their entry level grinders, and a lot of the internals are plastic. So after use, everything kind of loosens up. And my dad has one, and I saw like his setting 10 was producing between like 400 and 800 micron grind. My friend, who was 3 years old, his number 10 was like over 1600. Like it was unusable. So even between the exact same grinder and even going up the scale on higher end grinders, they're not calibrated necessarily from the factory. So a 10 or 12 or 15, it doesn't equate to 1500 microns. It's just number 15 that you have to know, move up or down. So actually having a measurable tool where you can see, oh, well, this is actually a 3-inch, or like a 58 millimeter portafilter. Usually you have a ruler to measure that, right? It's not like it's a half pinky length portafilter. There's measurements for a reason to kind of standardize the world. So hopefully, it'll help us convey the message more. And we've in the past given recipes where we give grind size kind of recommendations and then water temperature, all that stuff. But we're trying to move away from that because it's a starting point, but realistically, we want to give people a range where we should be, whether it's a siphon or a pour over or an espresso, because the roast, the freshness, there's so much that impacts the flavor that trying to standardize that around the world, the best thing that we can do is just give people a range. Like in a cold brew, you should be somewhere here because of X, Y, Z. And hopefully let people kind of experiment and use these tools to further their knowledge or their journey in coffee and understanding.
I threw y'all's website up on the screen. Yeah. Where else are a couple places where people here in the States can, who's some of your bigger dealers?
Prima Coffee. I don't think they have any inventory right now, or just working right now the details to either get their shipment in sooner or wait until the container comes in. But they're probably the best bet. They're a great partner of ours. They will have the sifter and the brewers and the brew sticks in stock. And as far as anything else, we ship internationally from our website. So shipping to the US is pretty quick. Except this stuff like the sifter, we'll get those in mid-October. Most of our glasses are in stock and then shipping now. But if you throw a brewer in there, obviously it'll wait till that's in stock till everything ships.
And they can find you on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all the good stuff.
Yeah, Instagram's our biggest, and it's the one we check the most. We're a very visual brand, so a lot of people tag us in their coffee pictures and how they're using the sifters or the glasses. So Instagram, it's @Kruve is the handle. So you can find us there, follow us there. It's probably the best place. And then newsletter, we don't send it out too much unless there's something worthy of talking about, but you could always sign up to our newsletter.
Definitely. Well, Marek, thanks for coming on the show, man.
That was my pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to have you back because I think this is one of my definitely favorite shows so far. Really looking forward to trying your products. I'm going to drop you off the stream here for a second. Yep. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to leave you in the green room. I'm just going to close out the show. But once again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for telling the world about your products and showing that y'all. I mean, the passion that you talked about your products is awesome, man. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight or today or next week, whenever you're listening to the show. We really appreciate you. You can check us out, roastersmarketplace.com. You can find our podcast on every possible podcast platform out there. We should be on Amazon really, really soon. I'm just waiting on the final approval on that. But Give us a like, give us a share. Definitely go check out Marek and his awesome coffee accessories. I don't know if that's the proper term or not, but we really appreciate him coming on the show. We're going to roll out the show with a little Dom Coors as usual. Have a great night. Thanks for listening.